In a 1990 interview, Angus Young of ACDC said, "I'm sick to death of people saying that we've made 11 albums that sound exactly the same. In fact, we've made 12 albums that sound exactly the same." And it's funny to hear that, but the point is that it's an incredible formula that sounds amazing. And here's what I think are the 7 things that make all these ACDC albums sound so great. One of those things is the memorable intros. How many ACDC songs, we can recognize them as soon as they start. And often the intros, they don't even come back in the song. They were composed just to get your attention, like that one does from You Shook Me All Night Long. It's such a great intro. We know exactly what the song's coming. We can't wait for that verse to get started. And this really cool intro is building it up. We've got this D note that Malcolm keeps playing like this, and that D note just drones on, right? It's over top of, you guys always think about what the chords are. Don't always just memorize things by the numbers. Remember that what is this? It's a G chord, right? What do we have? We have a D. That's the one that Malcolm's playing. We have a D. That's a D, so you might think it's not a D chord though. That's a G. It's the G, it's the root chord of the song. It's just played up there in a very cool spot, and it allows us to have this cool melody. That's the D chord, right? It sounds like resolve, doesn't it? Where's the resolve? I'm pretty sure it's the G, because that's what's going to come next. And we always know what's going to come next, and it's always great. So often, it's a simple chord progression. And I would say that's number 2 of this formula, is that the chord progressions are quite simple. They're often just 3 chords. They tend to move pretty quickly. Rather than being like a folk song where you might be hanging out on G for a couple bars or something. Now that's also cool. I love my folk music as well. But here, the chords are moving constantly. Even though there's 3 of them, they keep moving, right? So it's just G, C, and D. That's just a plain old 1, 4, 5. It's the most basic of chord progressions in rock and roll, but it's great. And the way they bounce around is so effective. That's what's so catchy. It sticks in our mind. We hear this song once and man, we know it forever. And so many of their songs are like this, just bouncing around a simple chord progression and just bouncing through those chords quite quickly. And the third thing that I notice about it is all the syncopation in these chord movements. It's not like we're just changing on beat 1. It's often changing on some kind of syncopated beat, some kind of upbeat. We can hear it right there in that verse. When we look at the rhythm, we see how many of those chords change on upbeats. It's syncopated. There's anticipation. The chords always change on an interesting beat. And sometimes that actually makes it hard to play. It can be quite difficult to play these in the pocket like Malcolm and Angus do so well. A lot of the times, what I've heard is when they were writing these, is one of them would actually get on the drum kit while the other plays the riff to make sure that these lock in correctly, even with all that anticipation and that syncopation. The beat that always gets me on this one is, it's a... That D chord on that upbeat, like what is that beat? That's the end of 4, so that's the anticipation, and you really gotta practice that to get that locked in with the drums. You could lazily swing away at it, but it's not gonna sound as cool as when they do it. It's so perfect. And the fourth characteristic, I would say, is notice that these are just campfire chords, almost. Most of them are basically just campfire chords. This is very different than a lot of rock bands, right? A lot of rock bands might be using power chords up the fretboard, or bigger bar chords up the fretboard, or riffs. These are kind of riffs, but with campfire chords. Now I say almost campfire chords because one of the very key things that they do that makes it sound so much like AC/DC is that they often remove the third from the chords. This is a mistake that a lot of people make when they play these songs, is they just get used to playing these campfire chords like G and having this major third in the chord. But they don't do that. Usually what they'll do is they'll just hover that finger over the string so that it mutes it slightly, and when they strum through, we don't hear that B note, which is the third of that chord, right? G, A, B. And then typically they're doing this G shape with this D note on the B string as well. So again, it's hiding that B. That major third is not there. We have another D, another fifth of the chord. So effectively, it's a G5. It's a G power chord, but in open position with lots of strings. And that's why it sounds so good. Once we have a lot of overdrive and distortion, which they have a fair bit of, the thirds are sometimes get a bit mushy. So that's why it sounds so cool to block out those thirds. And it just sounds, I don't know, it's more rock and roll, right? We do it often with the D chord in ACDC songs as well. But where is that third on a D chord? That third is on the high E string. The third of a D chord is D, F sharp. And so we don't want that F sharp usually. Now he plays it sometimes. I'm not saying it's always, but often we don't want that F sharp there. And again, by blocking that high E string, just by touching that string a little, now we don't have a D major chord, we have a D5 chord. It's more rock and roll. It's definitely very characteristic of AC/DC. We could even do it on a C chord, just by relaxing that second finger there. We could do that with the verse. Number 5 is the amount of empty space they leave in these riffs. If you listen to You Shook Me All Night Long, you'll notice once the drums come in and we have that riff with those open chords, there's actually so much open space. It's very important to stop the strings on the right beat. And it's so cool because then all we hear in that space is the drums playing that very simple rock beat. The bass hasn't even come in yet, so it's so simple. But when those strings stop, we hear those drums, and that's it. That empty space is incredible, and you'll notice that that's what they're doing a lot on the verses, but it's a little different on the choruses, and that's what I would say is a characteristic number 6, is that there's also a lot of walking between the chords. When they want things more exciting, like on a chorus, you kind of want more strums. You might want less empty space, and they're filling some of that space by walking to and from the chords. So in this case, we have a G chord, right? And it's going up to a C chord, so we're just doing a basic walk to C chord. I mean, that's like classic country music is what that is. That's like Johnny Cash, pretty much. I mean, we might not think of it as a classic country kind of move, but it is really. And then they're arpeggiating the chords, right? So it's not just the walk, but they're also arpeggiating it to keep the sound bigger for those choruses, so they're more exciting. And then of course, when you go back down to the verse, it's gotta all come back down again and have that empty space. So we hear that when we get to the chorus, Number 7, let's talk about the solos. They are very classic rock solos with a lot of blues licks, but not always. There's a lot of clever things, and I think that they really thought about the solos a lot. I think that Angus Young, he knew his way around the fretboard. These weren't just wailing away on minor pentatonic, as we find in the solo of You Shook Me All Night Long. There's minor pentatonic, and there's a bit of major pentatonic, and there's changing positions up the fretboard to create a nice dynamic change throughout that solo. I mean, it's G minor pentatonic, right? And he starts down here with pretty much a blues lick, but with a wild vibrato bend. I mean, that's pretty much, you could say it's from blues, it's from blues rock, it's pretty much from Jimmy Page. He also loves this arpeggio. I love this. Rather than just always playing scale-wise, he finds clever ways that he kind of has as his own, clever ways to not always be playing scale-wise. And this is it's basically like a G minor arpeggio. It's like the root, the fifth root there, minor third. The minor third is from minor pentatonic, but it's a very cool little ending to that first lick. Of cool vibrato on that, and that bend, like it goes up so slowly and then it's got that wild deep vibrato at the top. It's really effective. And the pre-bend before that little arpeggio, if I can call it that, what a great lick. He goes back to that arpeggio there. So we can see some of the characteristic moves that he likes to make. Now we are going to dissect this song in greater detail on our Patreon group in the main stage level. So if you want to check that out, you can join for 7 days for free. The link to that is below. Now I mentioned that he does some major pentatonic because we are in a major key, right? This is such a rock and roll and a blues rock thing to do, where when you're in a major key, you're using minor pentatonic. That doesn't really make sense. We're in a major key, minor pentatonic, but that's the blues thing. But since we're in a major key, we can bring in some major pentatonic. We have those notes if we want that sweeter color. And that's where this lick is. The first part is minor pentatonic. But then, watch this. You can hear the different color when we slide up another 2 frets. It's a very different color. It's major pentatonic. The first one, minor pentatonic. Ooh, that is so major pentatonic. Now it sounds really like some classic blues players. I don't know, B.B. King's. Now it really sounds cool. And again, if you're learning any of this music, don't just memorize the numbers. Make sure you understand, well, what do you mean major pentatonic? Where's that coming from? Well, it's this shape here. That's that second part of the lick. It's from G major pentatonic, root there at the 10th fret of the A string, right? But if you picture the first part, that's what everyone likes to call the blues box or house of blues, right? But take that up 2 frets, that's the major pentatonic. Funny B string shape, I call it here. That's like a country bend. And then a blue note of major pentatonic, back to major pentatonic. That blue note of major pentatonic would also be the minor third of minor pentatonic. I mean, things start to get a bit fuzzy at some point. We don't need to overanalyze it, but if you're going to learn the solo, make sure you understand what was he thinking at that time, because then you can use these licks yourself. Whenever you're in this house of blues minor pentatonic, you can just move up 2 frets and you get the major pentatonic. So he played. A masterpiece. It's really quite brilliant. I've learned so much by learning and analyzing ACDC songs over the years and other bands like this one here. There's a lot to learn from these guys, so check that video out too.